Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing on Talk 910. I'm your host, Edward Brown. I'm proud to have as my co-host Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money, one of California's fastest growing mortgage investment firms, and Rob Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Now, you're going to use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during each commercial break. That's right, we're giving away 9 vacations during this show. Now, the vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, which I tell you, on July 4th, man, what a weekend it was. I wasn't there, but I was told it was extremely busy.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's located about 1 hour northeast of San Francisco. The vacations are free. Their only request, a $75 cleaning fee to cover the housekeeping expenses. And today's trivia theme, I should have done this, waited for Catherine for next week, but it's happily ever after, questions about weddings.
Okay.
We're all married, so we should get all these right.
Is that a guy?
What happens if I don't get them right, though?
Make sure your wife's not listening in.
Oh,
Okay.
don't worry, she's not listening.
Yeah, okay. Our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out on television, Comcast Channel 26, AT&T Channel 99, Saturdays at noon, Sundays at 6 p.m. And guys, today we got a lot of real estate to talk about.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We just had the first half of the year. We're in the second half of the year
Incredible.
now. So so half of 2015 has gone by,
In the
and
books.
we kind of know what's happened in 2015. Although we'll talk about some of the statistics that have just come out. In fact, May's statistics have just come out. They haven't quite released June yet. But the biggest question that I get, Rob, and I'm in hard money loan origination, and you're in conventional mortgage origination, has to do with people asking me where I think the market's heading, and what's happening in real estate, and do I think we're in a bubble? And
bubble is a big one, yeah.
Yeah, the B word, the bubble word. And what do you think? What are your, you read a lot of blogs like I do, and I see a lot of opinions on both sides, and of course some of it depends on where you are. Are you standing in San Francisco going, are we in a bubble? Are you standing in Sacramento going, well, there's no bubble here,
right?
Or Silicon Valley?
The whole all real estate is local argument, and it definitely is true. What I think we see in our segment of the woods is that we are highly exposed to interest rate risk. So when we look at bubbles, when we talk about that kind of stuff, what I have to look at is where might the market go if we see the Fed increase rates in September or before the end of the year, and how will borrowers treat any such increase? Now, in thinking about what the Fed may do, if they do act, probably 0.25% difference. That's not a material difference for most borrowers, but will it change the herd mentality? Will that all of a sudden cool what we've seen at, I guess Greenspan would have called exuberance. We certainly have seen that in the market, and so will it temper that? Yet to be seen. I happen to think that rates will remain relatively stable and good, and I think this latest development with Greece may actually help rates stay lower than some forecast. So it'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that happens is that if you look at past trends and past cycles, what happens is that real estate activity actually goes up as rates go up because there's a little bit of a catch-up. So actually raising rates, there's a lagging effect for interest for the real estate market. So the real estate market doesn't suffer negatively until after a certain period of continual rate increases, and we don't know what that's going to be. Right now, this past week, we're seeing mortgage rates at a 2015 high, tick over 4% now. So, is it going to take it to get to 5% before we're going to start to see a substantial negative impact and decrease in sales? Because certainly sales are tracking higher right now. Of course, we're talking about May's numbers if we're looking at historical sales, so they haven't factored in. Clearly, they won't be factoring in any increase in mortgage rates yet, but May was actually a really good month, one of the better months of 2015, up 10% from prior years. We finally get 40,000 units in California sales.
That's
which is
interesting.
actually pretty darn good, although still the 20-year average is 60,000 a month, so we're still a far cry from a quote-unquote normal real estate market. But 40,000 is nothing to sneeze at.
You're not going to get a normal because you don't have a normal access to credit. I mean, you have an overregulated mortgage industry, and I think a lot of people who would otherwise benefit and be able to sustain mortgage that are being shut out of the market. That is a reality. But what I was going to comment on, what you were saying earlier about rates, one of the interesting windows we have into that is since the implementation of Dodd-Frank, what we've seen various investors try to get into, and Mark, you'll know what I'm talking about with this non-QM product. So basically,
Yeah.
these are loans that they don't fit the conventional box or parameters, but they're not private money. So they're somewhere in between those two. So you might see rates on those programs in the 5s and the 6s, things like that. And we've noticed that although the industry felt there would be an attraction or a need for this product, there's an aversion to that 5 or that 6 when the borrower is thinking they're going to get a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
Now, as we see rates rise, I would suspect that some of those borrowers will become accustomed to seeing those rates, and historically that would we'd still be well within norm and very, very good. But I think there's going to be a gradual adjustment to that should it happen. And I also don't think that any of us predict that there will be a dramatic jump in rates. I don't think the housing market or the broader economy could sustain something like that.
I would agree.
If interest rates do go up, let's say to 6%,
Yeah.
what would that change the quote average monthly payment for a borrower?
Well, when I did the math on, if you take here in the Bay Area, if you did the math on a 0.25% rate rise, or maybe I did it on a half, it's changing the payment about $300 on an average loan size. So, between 6 and 800K, I know that may seem high to a lot of areas, but here in the Bay Area, it's quite common. So if you factored in a change of a 0.5% on that, you might see a raise to the principal and interest payment of about $300. So if you raised it another beyond that, you might be talking $600-700 on a $600,000 to $700,000 loan. That's something that's going to change ratios and it's going to make a borrower think a little bit more closely
So
about whether
does
they can afford
that
that.
make the property sit a little bit longer, go down in price?
Well, okay, yes, I think it does, but I think you're tying that to a specific factor. And what I've seen in my career, and certainly what we saw in 07 and 08, and then coming out of the down cycle in 12 and 13, it's more about what people perceive as the demand for real estate. So, I think that the run-up that we had in 12 and 13 and 14, yes, it was fueled by historic low rates, but would that demand still have existed if rates were 1% higher or 2% higher? I'm inclined to say it would have.
Well, that's what I like about what Mark's business is. When he makes loans, they're short term.
Yeah.
So that he doesn't have to get caught up in 30-year paper and
Right.
and the price of the house
Well,
gets
It's a
decimated.
much shorter term investment.
What
model.
we are seeing, and this is a really good solution for those that may be looking at this like, okay, well, we couldn't get into the market just yet. We still have a toe in the water. We want to buy a house. 30-year fixed is getting a little too expensive for us. What we are seeing now certainly is a shift to 7 or 10-year ARMs. So what you're going to see there is a spread of anywhere from a full percent to a 0.5% lower than a 30-year fixed program. And it's still going to give the buyer a lot of stability in rate because they're going to have that for 7 or 10 years fixed in, and that's going to serve the needs, I think, statistically of 94% of people who take a loan. So that may be a way to counter that.
Got it. Hey, tell you what, guys, let's get to our first commercial break here. The theme is, what's the theme again? Happily Ever After. Questions about weddings.
Oh, right.
Okay.
I'm all over this.
Oh, you're going to love this one.
Not.
Okay. A traditional Japanese bride wears a tsunokakushi, a triangular headband. Why? The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day It'll be an interesting answer, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
The first 3 callers with the correct answer are going to win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. A Japanese bride wears a tsunokakushi. Kakushi, yeah, that's it. A triangular headband. Why? All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing with Edward Brown, Mark Hahn, and Rob Spinoza. Don't touch that dial because we will be right back. We're talking about a lot of real estate today. Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Get a little bit into the
I like the appraisal angle. That's
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I do too. But I was just going to throw out some discussion that I think you're right. I think there's a new normal. I don't know that we'll ever go back to 60,000, or at least anytime soon, back to 60,000 units a month.
When did it last hit that?
Yeah.
2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because
The
you
last
were
time we
bringing
went
in
above
so many
50.
more borrowers. I mean, you were bringing in all these people.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you had interest-only product. You were qualifying off the interest-only payments. You could do,
Well, and
nothing
people
down.
also they got scared, so they're saying, I don't care to buy right now. I don't need to buy. I'll just rent.
Right.
Because the rent's
Although the rental situation is, I mean, I had a buddy I was talking to him yesterday. He said they're expecting a kid in like the next month.
Yeah.
To keep renting. They know their landlord is like ready to just increase their rent.
I've got some trends here that talk about favorable market conditions now at work and trends to be concerned about.
Okay.
So that could be
interesting.
interesting.
You want to continue on with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're talking real estate.
Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff and Rob Spinoza. Let's see, we kept to the first commercial break, and we want to see how much these guys knew about happily ever after.
Japanese headdresses.
Not much.
Not much. Okay, a traditional Japanese bride wears a tsunu kakushi, a triangular headband. Why?
Crickets.
Close. To cover her horns. Once
What?
believed that women have horns of jealousy to hide them on her wedding day. That's a tough one.
That
Yeah,
is
that would have never guessed
very
that one.
interesting.
Boy, your wife's going to be very upset that you
She's
didn't know
gonna be
the
very
answer to
happy that I didn't know
one.
the answer to that one.
Exactly. Okay, we're talking lots of real estate here. Mark's got some excellent statistics and information for us. Continue, my friend.
Well, we were talking in the last segment about real estate sales are actually up for May. They hit 40,000 units in California, but I didn't give a little perspective as to how that compares to historical. The highest it's ever been was in June of 2004 when we had nearly 77,000 units sold in California. Now the low was 4 years later, January of 2008, when we sold under 20,000
Wow.
units. So you got a spread from 20 to
I remember those
77,000 units.
So I'm going to guess two things. One, back in 2004, it was really easy for everyone to get a loan.
Yes, it was.
And by 2008, not only was it harder, but when people saw the market
Yes,
crash,
you're
everybody said,
absolutely right.
I don't want to get in.
Again, yeah, her mentality on that.
And I've read in certain publications that California won't be in a normal real estate market again until we start hitting on average a $60,000 a month unit. And I don't know that that's realistic. I think we're in a new normal. I think there's a lot of things that contribute to a lower turnover of housing, and I think 40,000 units, that might end up being a new average for us. And part of that is, we've got fewer participating first-time home buyers. We've talked in past shows about how millennials are not, they'd rather rent than buy, many of them, and a lot of them are living at home. And then you've got lower homeowner turnover. Nowadays, people aren't upgrading or even downgrading as much anymore.
Where am I going to go? Argument.
Yeah, and the rental industry is very strong right now.
And you also have San Francisco's median home price hit a new record high of $1.225 million in April. I mean, that's not accessible to very many people.
That's what I was
Right, the
saying.
low inventory feeds on itself,
Right.
And causes pricing to jump up because you've got people, more and more people with money, cash buyers particularly, who don't care about the intrinsic value. They want what they want and they'll pay for it.
And one of the things we've seen, one of the interesting dynamics that's unfolded with the jobs numbers that you get monthly in the first week of the month is, for a while there, because the jobs numbers were so poor, everyone shifted their focus to when we see a certain number come back. So when we started to see the numbers over 200,000 a month, okay, great, but guess what? Then investors start looking at the wage growth within that number. And where is that going? Because if you're going to try and afford these houses, you're not going to do it on the average or stagnant wage growth that we've seen within those
So,
reports.
so like these all cash buyers, like I said, they really they don't care about the nuances because they care where they live.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that was like my wife. I suggested we sell the house and live in a '57 Chevy and save the monthly payment. She didn't go for that.
Well, she go cover the horns.
Yeah.
And then
So what I wanted to do, just throw out, since we're always asked to predict which way the market's heading. I thought I'd share with you some favorable market conditions that are
neat.
now at work, but tempered with trends that we should be concerned about. And so here's three favorable market trends in real estate that we now have. We've got a steady 3% annual increase in the number of new jobs. Of course, new jobs drives housing demand. And a flattening price trend that we're starting to see in many markets in California as we head towards 2016. And slowly but rising consumer confidence and spending. Those are all favorable market conditions for a healthy real estate market. But on the other side of that, trends to be concerned about, weakest home buyer demographics in over a decade. And again, that's because of fewer market segments like millennials are looking to buy homes. Also, the fewer people have the down payment necessary now that everybody has to have a down payment for, well, not everybody, but most homes
So
need a down payment.
Theoretically, that still means that the rental market will stay strong.
I would say so. Buyer borrowing power is no longer growing, meaning mortgage rates now are trending up, so that's heading in the opposite direction. And last but not least, we've got tightening loan standards, of course, thanks to Dodd-Frank and these other yet to be enacted loan strategies.
And the construction.
Yes, good point, Edward.
Not
Building construction not keeping up, right? So that's what makes it so hard to predict which way the market's going to go. Now, I tend to agree with the side that says we're not in a bubble.
I agree with you on that.
Because clearly the bubble previously was really a credit bubble.
Correct.
Which caused it, and so we don't have the same type of bubble conditions. However, that being said, if we had a major crash in a market segment such as tech, if tech all of a sudden took a big hit, well, I think that would put a big damper on what's happening in the market right now, particularly in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, where we've got increasing prices.
Or if you had an exodus from California, there was a time in the late '80s, early '90s, a lot of people were moving out to go to like Oregon.
Right.
As long as we keep having immigration and just having new people,
population growth in that sense, yeah. And you also tend to get, when you get the influx, you're getting educated and capable workers in the case of the Bay Area, and that helps us. So that's a force multiplier. One thing I would say about that, we talk about who's buying the houses and things like that. One of the trends that I've noticed, and one of the concerns that I would have, that would be consistent with what we saw in '07 and '08. Not that we're going to mirror that, but I noticed that as price points get higher, a lot of borrowers will bring in additional income to support the loan that they seek to get. In other words, they're not qualifying only on their base salary anymore. They're qualifying on bonuses, they're qualifying on stock income that they get, or not restricted stock units, but stock options and things like that supplement their income and enable them to meet the criteria of getting the loan. Well, that's a function of the companies they work for performing well. So you can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So if that cycle started to unravel, then you could quickly see the borrowing power of those individuals diminish, and that's going to take buyers out of the market, which will lessen demand. And then you could see this thing kind of taper or certainly go in reverse. I think that takes a lot more doing than what we saw with the credit bubble, where basically programs were created to accommodate scenarios that were unsustainable. We have the opposite of that now. So I think that we have a very, very creditworthy borrower buying a home, someone who is very disinclined to letting go.
And when people ask me, which way I think the market's heading or if we're in a bubble, I remind people that the real estate market just doesn't move quickly. Now, in hindsight, we look back and we talk about the real estate market crash, but it didn't really crash. It peaked in 2007 and it bottomed out by 2010-11.
Yes.
So it was a multi-year tumble, right? So rather than a crash, really.
Yeah, before you know it, 7 years has gone by.
Right.
Yeah,
and people still made money buying and
Both sides of
flipping
it,
homes, as the market was heading down. So you can still, if you buy correctly and you have your team in place and you have a short-term strategy, it almost doesn't matter what the market's doing. You can still earn a profit. So from an investment standpoint, it just means you have to be smarter today in an era where have prices peaked once more, and are we going to what could we expect to see from continuing appreciation going forward?
One thing I would say, Mark, you deal with the other side of it because you deal with a lot of investment properties and you deal with a lot of investors. Here on the residential or the primary home financing that we do, what I advise and what I hear myself saying to clients all the time is when you're buying a primary home, that's not an investment so much.
Right.
In other words, don't get yourself wrapped up in the market timing of things. And you brought up a great point just now. By way of example, if you had bought a home in 2008 when everybody else was running the other way, you've done pretty well. And even if you bought at the peak of the market and you watched it, the value plummet, if you held on because it was your primary home and you bought it for the right reasons, it's close to where I work, the school district is good, or whatever other reasons motivated you to buy, if you held it here in California anyway, you've seen that value largely come back. And if you've serviced the debt on it and paid it down, you're probably in okay shape. Yeah, nobody guaranteed you a 25 or 50% return on your investment. But again, if it's a primary home, I don't view it as an investment. I view it as, where you live.
Well, I mean, you hope you didn't buy it at the top of the market.
Of course.
You save some cash, but yeah, flipping
right.
your personal residence. Okay, guys, we've got the second commercial break. When we come back, I want to get into some interesting emails here, particularly for Rob,
Okay.
about the lender and tax returns.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. We're talking about happily ever after, the June weddings and stuff. We're in
Somebody
July
is
now.
anyway.
Yeah. Questions about weddings. All right. Where would you be if the bride came into the church with a lump of sugar in her glove? Okay. The first three callers with the correct answer will have a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-912-1190. Are you telling me that your wives didn't come with a lump of sugar in their glove?
Lump of coal, maybe.
Good one, good one. All right, stay tuned. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Edward Brown here, along with Mark Hahn from Pacific Private Money, Rob Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. We are talking lots of fun real estate today, and stay tuned because we got some good stuff coming up.
In her glove.
Good.
Yeah, that was interesting on this. We can hit this, like, if we'll do email in segment 3, and then if you want to go back to this or cover whatever you have, but I just thought it was interesting. In 09, 5.4% under
Below asking price.
And April of 2015, it's at an all-time high of 7% over asking. And this, is this Bay Area or California? According to California, yeah, this is the entire state.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Bay Area. I thought this was Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah. Paid by single-family homes in the Bay Area.
Wow.
It's
So 9-county area, do you think? Yeah.
Bay Area. 7% more than asking. I mean, for a statistic to be that high, that's actually pretty significant.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I got a buyer in contract right now. They just got their approval today. They bought in Fairfield. They're buying a beautiful place for $430.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like
you
you
can
look
still
at
get,
like-
right outside the Bay Area, nothing's happening like what's happening here. I mean,
Wow.
if you weren't looking outside the Bay Area, you would have no idea that.
And it works for their commutes because he works mostly in the wine
Yeah.
country and she can telecommute and works 2 days in the city.
Like you remember, Edward, remember we did that loan a year ago for that guy in Danville who was having his home built for him.
Yep.
And during the 6 months, it went up like 15% in terms of what the builder was now selling that same model for. And so we were able to actually do an 80% of purchase price loan because it was 65% loan to current value. So I get a call from someone out in the foothills of Sacramento with a similar situation, but their new home was $300,000. They got into contract at right around $300,000. I said, so what's that same home now selling for? Oh yeah, it's up to $303,000.
Yeah.
What? Oh yeah, they've gone up. It's up to $303,000. I said, well, I was expecting like maybe a 10%
20
or something. Yeah, you know.
Well, Marco he's buying a house in Arizona because he's living in Phoenix now for $450,000, and the this thing?
It's like 6-bedroom, 5-bath.
Oh my gosh! It's like 27
With its own
feet
golf
with
course.
It's got a clubhouse. It's just an iPhone.
Clubhouse. You just have to live in
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like,
but
got a buddy there. He's
it's
like, I love training in the heat. It's 105. I'm like, wow.
And his monthly HOA dues are going to be like, you know,
$75.
No,
Oh.
or they they have a small clubhouse and a workout room. It'd be like 150 or 200 bucks. I know.
Gym membership.
Yeah. I told him, he says, if another one comes up, let me know.
Yeah.
I'll have our retreat there.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Here we go. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt and Rob Spinoza. When we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question about happily ever after, about brides and weddings and all that fun stuff. Where would you be if the bride came into the church with a lump of sugar in her glove?
Slovakia.
Cuba.
No. Cuba, like is it Cuba sugar?
Well, so they grow sugar there. I mean.
Cuba sugar.
Hawaiian.
No.
You-
Greece. And it's
Oh.
to ensure that married life will be sweet, especially since what's going on in Greece.
Since you're,
they carry lots
especially
of
since
sugar.
you're not paying your taxes.
Yeah. Now they're carrying, now they're carrying bags of sugar in there. Okay, a little email here. So, Mark, we got one here for you. It says, at what point will you cut off accepting money in your fund? Will it stay open forever?
Oh, interesting. So I have a company called Pacific Private Money. We are private money loan originators. What that means is we make loans to people with using private capital instead of funds from the Fed or like banks do. We use private capital to fund our real estate loans. We make real estate loans mostly here in the Bay Area and have been doing so since 2008. We've originated over 1,000 privately funded loans at Pacific Private Money. And 2 years ago, we launched the Pacific Private Money Fund. And the reason we did that is because we were getting more and more phone calls from people who are interested in being investors in mortgage-backed notes. The reason people are interested in investing in mortgage-backed notes is because of the great returns that you can earn investing in those products. Now, this is an alternative investment strategy, and the use of the word alternative generally means it's generally used to describe, non-liquid, non-publicly traded. It's not like a stock when you invest in a mortgage-backed note, but it is a contract with collateral, and we tend to make short-term loans, so those contracts tend to get paid back within a year on average. And our investors earn anywhere from 8% and oftentimes more, depending on the type of the way they invest, whether they invest through a fund or if they invest in an individual note. Now, we've been encouraging most of our newer investors to strongly consider investing in our mortgage pool fund because, quite frankly, we've got a fairly large contingent of very wealthy note investors who take most of the products that we make available as individual notes. But as our fund is growing, more and more of our activity is being funded through our mortgage pool fund. In fact, we just released June's numbers. In fact, Edward hasn't even seen the report yet, but we did an annualized yield return of 8.29 for the month of June 2015, and we've been consistently paying out just a tick above 8% for the last 24 months now. And again, past performance is no promise of future results, but we're pretty bullish about the market right now. And so, so the question from the listener was, will you continue to keep accepting money? In fact, I've gotten many existing investors coming in ready to write an additional check, but before I write this check out, I just want to find out, what do you think the market's, do you think it's still a good time to be investing in notes? And do you still think the demand for notes, for private notes, is going to be strong? And what happens if you don't need my money? And questions. People are nervous, of course. We're all wondering, which way the market's going to head. But the fact of the matter is our demand has not declined. If anything, it's actually grown thanks to the lending restrictions imposed by Dodd-Frank. More and more people are finding that they can't get a bank loan as fast as they need to, or maybe they don't qualify at all for the current 4% mortgages, and they need a plan B. And so we're there for that plan B. And I do believe, because we do mostly short-term notes, and because I don't see demand slacking anytime soon, even if mortgage rates go up, I still think private capital mortgages are going to be in strong demand for years to come, and therefore I am gladly accepting increased investments. Now, we did
Or
write-
new investments.
or new investments, and our fund is designed to cap out at 50 million. Right now, we're not even half that, so we've still got a way to grow, and we'll decide as the fund approaches new benchmarks that if we can't put the bulk of the money to work, we may slow down accepting new investments. But we're far from that right now. We've got the capacity to take on quite a few more
And
investors.
when he announced the results today for the first time, do you know why I went woohoo? Because I've got my IRA, some IRA money in there. Hey, this is personal to me,
Yeah, take that person. Mark, I was going to ask you, one thing that I've noticed over my career, which has been about 15 years now, is that the general public, the people that I come into contact with, have just gotten more educated, smarter, more savvy about what they invest and the questions they ask, how they approach their financing.
Absolutely.
I
It's a
think
good
that's
thing.
going to fuel your growth for some time. I mean, I don't see that abating at all. I mean, I think that people have resources now to research this stuff. The stigma of what private money may have been, I think, is gone. People know that just like with subprime mortgages, they can put that in its rightful place and they can look at it as an alternate investment and make informed decisions about it. And I don't see that letting up.
Well, here's the thing to keep in mind if you're out there listening and you're intrigued by the idea of making 8%
Yeah.
more on your money is that, and so I'm using the term private money lender, right? I call, the name of our company is Pacific Private Money Loans. But we've been called hard money lenders in the past, and there really is no big differentiation between a hard money lender and a private money lender. It's really the same thing. But the reason why we don't like the term hard money lender anymore is this is a new industry, really, since 2008 and the passage of all the new financial reform acts. We are now a regulated industry. Most of the hard money lenders from 10, 15, 20 years ago are no longer in business. So this is a real serious business model that's regulated, and we disclose just like a bank loan. It's just no longer a back of the napkin type of loan to anybody who could fog a mirror. We turn down most loan requests. We are looking for the right type of loan to invest our clients' money in. So for more information on how you can earn 8% or more on your savings and IRA accounts, by the way, go check out our website. It's pacificmoneyfund.com. That's the name of our fund's website for investors. It's pacificmoneyfund.com, or jot our number down and give us a call, and we'll send you some information next week. It's 415-883-2150. Again, 415-883-2150 for Pacific Private Money.
I think also one of the reasons it's not so much stigma anymore is that you get some people who are ordinarily decent borrowers and they're trying to close a transaction
Right.
and they can't,
Right.
and they have to go to someone like Mark and get hard money, and suddenly they realize, they go, I wish I was that person who was lending the money.
Well, yeah, and someone came into my office this week and said, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in investing in seconds." And I said, "Well, that's nice, but we don't do that in seconds. We do mostly first.
Right.
So it's no longer an industry of just making seconds to people with one foot in financial despair. That's
Right.
not our
Yeah.
business
What
model."
happened? That's okay. Well, I'll split it with them. I'll do the
Right.
first one. I'll do the second.
How about this? So you go in right now. I think these people talk too. So let's say you're in this market. It's very competitive. It's very tight. You go to get conventional financing. It doesn't work. You do a cross-collateralized loan or something like that. The borrower looks at that and says, okay, well, now I got to pay all these fees to get this loan. They're not crazy about that. But then what they do, they go back to the seller and they say, okay, now I can close in a week. And they get a price reduction that exceeds what they pay to get the loan, and they solve their problem. That borrower then goes out there and says, wait a second, this is the real deal. This is how a transaction gets done that otherwise would not get done, and they actually saved me money because they made the transaction happen. So, I see that changing, and I like I said, I don't see that going away.
Well, I think, and was it you who told me the person had gotten, their income was like $800,000, and then went down to $500,000.
Right. Yeah.
And they couldn't get the loan.
Yeah, because a conventional lender sees a declining income of greater than 20%.
So what they did was they actually had a human being who was looking at it, not just a computer that
Right.
just says, oh, you make $500,000, you qualify.
Right. I mean,
They would have been better off had they made not 800,000 but made 500 and just consistently.
500, yeah, 2
Right.
years in a row is better than
Right.
800 and 500.
Yeah.
exactly. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's crazy.
Because no, I made a mistake. It's 500.
Yeah.
It's 800. Okay. All right. We got a commercial overview. We have a question for you, Rob, here.
Yeah.
Why is my lender asking for tax returns of my partnership in my refinance transactions? I never needed to provide this before.
Good question. So if you are a self-employed individual, you have ownership in an entity, whether it's a partnership, an S corporation, or a corporation. If you own greater, generally speaking, if you own greater than 25%, if you have greater than 25% ownership interest in that entity, most conventional lenders are going to ask you for the returns of the business. So that is, back when people were getting stated income loans, that was never a factor because you weren't even seeing the tax returns. But of course, what happens with individuals when they go to get a mortgage is we see their Schedule E, which is part of their personal federal income tax return, and if they have K-1 income, then we're going to ask to see the K-1, and that K-1 is going to show their percentage ownership in the entity. And if that exceeds 25%, we're going to ask for the returns of the business to determine what the financial position of the
But
business is.
they'll even ask all the K1s, even if you're a tenth of a percent, just because it's a K1.
That's correct.
Because they don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I've had that before where it's like I've shown, $3 of interest.
we're asking for the K-1.
Yeah, asking for the K1.
Yeah, and that comes up, and that trips a lot of people up because what they think it's insignificant to them.
Yeah.
It's not insignificant to the lender. This is a function of a fully documented loan. Remember that with Dodd-Frank in the picture, every lender must make a judgment call on ability to repay. So if you have not done your due diligence, if you have not turned over every rock with that borrower's financial profile, then hypothetically you're exposing yourself to not having done that. So
Well, have there been any, because the law is fairly new, have there been any lawsuits against lenders yet? Because, boy, that'd be interesting. As soon as some lawsuits start coming,
I'm
and they say,
sure there
you
have.
should have done such and such, it's
Right.
gonna tighten up even more.
well,
And Mark's got a big smile on his face because he means more
Here's-
business for him.
right, here's what governs that though, Edward. So when a lender makes a loan, typically these days, what you have is the originator originates the loan, the lender makes the loan, and then the loan gets sold on the secondary market. If that loan, and 9 of 10 of them will, be sold to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, now you have an end investor. So the end investor is going to look at that file too, and if the originator and lender did not do their job and collect all of those K-1s, they're going to, at that point, go back and they're going to ask for that stuff. So the likelihood that these things are getting through the system without all of that documentation is pretty small. I'm sure it's happening.
So let's say I get my loan, and now they started, oh, by the way, we forgot to ask you for this. I mean,
Yes.
I don't give it
You're
to
going to
them.
sign an errors and omissions document when you close on your transaction. If you're getting a residential loan, and it's going to say that if we've omitted something, you agree to comply with our request to provide it.
Otherwise, we're going to sell your house for money. You wascal, you wascal.
Yeah, we don't see we're not the guys that go out with the compliance
No, I know.
uniform on, but yes, that's how it works.
Okay, so you are our mortgage guy here on the Best of Investing.
Yes.
And we have a lot of listeners who are interested in loans and
Yeah,
houses and stuff like that.
Any
so-
questions about residential mortgages, jumbo mortgages, conventional mortgages, VA, FHA, 415-367-5959. I work for RPM Mortgage out of the Mill Valley office, and my bio is on the Best of Investing website as well.
Very good.
Yeah,
Okay. Here's our third and final trivia question about happily ever after.
since we're doing so well.
Yeah,
really-
maybe Nick's would be on the since you guys are doing terrible here. Okay. What would a wedding be without flowers? Every flower has a meaning, and up until recently, there was one particular flower symbolizing purity, chastity, and loveliness. Not loneliness, but loveliness, which was incorporated into bridal bouquets. Which flower are we talking about? Okay. The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. What would a wedding be without flowers? Every flower has a meaning, and up until recently, there was one particular flower symbolizing purity, chastity, and loveliness, which was incorporated into bridal bouquets. Which flower are we talking about? Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. You know what? I purposely asked really hard questions for this week and next week because I'm going to be so swamped.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to get up on these calls.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, thinking a number between 1 and 10 million.
Yeah, right. Oh, I bet math questions you can't get about because you're gonna get some
White
physics
flowers,
nerd
what are
out there,
white
right?
Oh,
flowers?
I've had some like
Yeah.
hard, yeah.
Don't throw it out to math people because man, some guy will sit out there and figure it out.
Yeah, but no, a lot of times that they realize, oh, first two callers, blah blah, I don't have time. You
The
know.
odds.
Yeah. That's why I think. That's
It's
why.
not the chrysanthemum. That's the death flower, isn't it?
No,
Yeah.
no, black roses.
Yeah. No, I think chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum.
Is one of the ones.
After I wrote these, and I realized it was you instead of Catherine. I was going, I should have waited for Catherine.
Yeah,
for
Catherine
wedding
would
stuff.
know.
For her, I get to think about like motocross.
Yeah, right.
Let me figure out how much time we got left. And Mark, do we have a deal of the week at all?
No. Let's just go with that.
Gotta bring Rick in. He was telling me what was going on with Oakland.
Mm.
You know, guys putting up additional collateral, getting a loan.
Oh, the secondary lender said no, so he's got to come in with. He's got the buyer. If the buyer's going to close that transaction, he has to come in with cash.
When did you find that out?
Shortly after Rick sent you that email.
Oh, because he called me
Yeah, 'cause
before you came in.
Yeah, Solomon Gorlick of Red Tower sent us an email saying, the borrowers don't have sufficient collateral for me to do that kind of loan. He needed other collateral. He wasn't going to give 25% down as a loan.
Got it. So is that deal dead then?
Well, probably, and Rick and I are both really pissed at Richard and David because that's like the fourth deal they've brought us this year that Richard closed. They're not the borrowers, but David's the realtor and Richard is the source of the lead, and they would both be earning fees for if the transaction closes.
Do you know much about this borrower? Because I know it's just like
I
a bunch
don't-
of
well,
barbecue things or whatever.
Yeah, well, apparently, yeah, but it's cash. These guys have tons of, and their extended family, they're in cash businesses, and apparently that
Gotcha.
if you make them the loan, we like the loan, we like the borrower.
Yeah, but we're not going to do 120% of financing.
No, we're not.
Well, if they got the cash, they can maybe put it up.
They have it somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
They're
the thing.
probably like digging it out of their socks and
Yeah.
bank it.
They still have to get the rehab money
Yeah.
out. Okay, right?
Well, I thought we'd maybe go a little bit into the appraisal
Yeah,
thing.
that's
because
great.
when Patty and I talked about it, we couldn't really get into that. So you may have somebody. I love that 7 in the Bay Area, but San Francisco 15% is the typical.
All right, here we go. Ready?
That's the average.
Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hahn and Rob Spinoza. When we cut to the third and final commercial break, we asked this trivia question about happily ever after weddings. Well, what would a wedding be without flowers? Every flower has a meaning, and up until recently, there was one particular flower symbolizing purity, chastity, and loveliness, which was incorporated into bridal bouquets. Which flower?
I'm guessing it's a white flower, but I
That's
can't
what I would
guess the
thought. That's
name.
what I would
Tulip?
thought.
Oh, it's
No,
not.
an orange blossom. What? Well, you guys suck.
Yeah, we're terrible at this.
Okay, on
Those
to
things
some
did
more
better.
important things than weddings. Real estate. Okay, Mark, you were going to talk about
Well,
appraisals.
Rob touched on something a couple segments ago about how $1 million over asking is now a reality on a lot of real estate transactions in San Francisco. It's just gone crazy because you've got very, very few homes on the market relative to the people with money who want to buy them.
Yeah.
And there's an article that was actually in the Chronicle a couple of weeks ago that I've been saving that talks about how houses that are selling for above asking price complicates the appraisal process that is key to getting financing if you want to buy a house financed. And let's face it, even though there's a lot of cash buyers out there, 75% of all homes sold involve a mortgage.
Right.
And so I have this chart here that shows how as of April of 2015, in the Bay Area, 7%, the average home overbidding is 7%. In San Francisco, that number is nearly 16%.
Yeah,
The
so it's
typical
double.
buyer paid 16% over asking. It's funny, this week alone, I got one of my loan agents brought me in a purchase money loan scenario where where the buyer is paying 17% over
that's
asking.
funny.
It's funny. It's totally coincidental. It's exactly in the art. So it's true, and it's just a game that they play in San Francisco where they price it at a point where they think they will generate the most excitement to get it bid up. They don't. If they actually price it too high, they might sell it for less than they would if they price it lower. If that makes sense.
And
it's actually weird. It's reverse logic.
Agents have a stake in that, obviously, because you don't want to be the listing agent that doesn't get the price.
Right.
And if you get well beyond the price, then you look like a hero to your client. Not that, I mean, obviously a lot of them have great market knowledge and they want to price it competitively and where they need to price it. But this plays into the psychology of it too, which is not insignificant. And you were going to mention how that is complicating the appraisal process.
Right, absolutely. So you've got, you have to remember that appraisers are there to protect lenders, not the buyer. So while in many cases the appraiser magically comes in right at the contract price, what's happening more and more now is they're not. In fact, one realtor who was interviewed for this article said in the last 8 months, 6 of 30 purchases that she was representing, the appraisals came in below the contract price, and she says that's never happened before to her. So, and in fact, in one Oakland home, she was representing an offer of $600,000, and the appraisal came in at $465,000.
Yeah, we've seen some wildly low stuff. It's not all that common, but appraisers, they've been regulated to death too, and they have a really tough job ahead of them. And you got to understand that when you get a real property appraisal, they're comping it out with the past, and yet agents are looking forward. So you right off the bat, you have a disparity in how the value is being determined. And so my discussions with appraisals, obviously not on transactions because we're not allowed to talk to them anymore, but in the field, when you talk to appraisers, they have their work cut out for them because you have a house on the market, it gets overbid, so now somebody, likely a realtor, priced it based on market knowledge and a comparative market analysis and other things that have recently sold. And now this house, very realistically here in the Bay Area, could have been bid up $100,000 or even more than that.
If it's still willing buyer, willing seller, that determines the market as long as it's an arm's length.
Correct, but that doesn't determine the loan to value. And so as the lender goes off the lesser of the purchase price or the appraised value.
I know, but I'm saying the appraised value should be. Listen, San Bernardino, San Francisco, it's all the same, right? Starts with San.
Yeah.
$100 a square foot versus $1,000.
It's just a margin of time. So what you have in this case is you've got an appraiser who goes out there. He sees the contract price. He sees the addendum that says now that we're agreeing to pay this price for it, and it's above the contract price. Now he's got to go find comps for that property. Well, he's not going to find exact comps. So what he does is he makes adjustments. Basically, he says if this property were that property, it would be more or less based on this percentage or dollar amount. So, when those adjustments start to get wildly, out of sync, in other words, when you start having 20% adjustments, now an underwriter's looking at this thing and saying, is it, really what he thinks it is? And the worst thing that can happen to these guys, because they're, like I said, they're being regulated to death, is appraisal comes back and they say, I want 2 more comps to support your position. Well, if that property was hard to comp in the first place, it's not going to get any easier. And that's the dilemma they're faced with. It's not an enviable task.
And how, I know that the banks have approved lenders.
Yes.
And they have like a bulletin, or approved appraisers and a bulletin board or wherever. That's how it was a few years ago. How many times do they look at an appraisal and even ask for one, and they just go, man, this guy's not doing a very good job?
Well, okay, so the way it happens now is you've got an AMC, an appraisal management company, that a lender will contract with. That creates a barrier between the transaction and the appraiser. So that's the first thing that happens, and you'll have approved appraisers on that list. They're certified usually, and if they screw up, their license would be affected by that, and they might fall out of that pool. So that's how that gets released. But when you have situations like you're describing, what you see now with appraisals, especially, is if that guy goes out there and he does a poor job with the appraisal, the review process once the appraisal comes in is going to weed that out. So I'll give you an example. On a conventional loan, you'll get the appraisal back, and now we'll have to go through, in most cases, Fannie Mae's collateral underwriter. Fannie Mae over time has built a database of properties and they'll take that appraisal in and they'll go, okay, this is a home that we recognize as this, and it should be worth about this to this. And now the appraisal's saying it's not. So it'll score that appraisal, and if that collateral underwriter score is unacceptable, now it gets kicked out to a review. Now you've got a review appraiser looking at that appraisal, and that's what's governing this whole process.
What's the time? How long does it take? Let's say the appraiser.
Great question.
Right, because I could just imagine, you're trying to close a transaction
Oh.
somewhere quickly and go, yeah, we're waiting for the appraiser. Appraiser comes with something, and let's say he comes in with close to what the purchase price is,
Right.
but some underwriter says,
Yeah.
no, not really.
Edward, you have your finger on the pulse of
Yeah.
exactly what we're dealing with on a daily basis.
How much time?
Oh, you could easily lose 2 weeks. And believe me, the real estate agents in those transactions are not going to be happy when it happens. And you have to explain to them up front, look, if the property is listed at, let's throw out a number, $750K, and it goes into contract for $900,000, the war is not over yet. We still have some battles to fight to get this,
Unless it's an all cash, no contingency.
Well, and so you will sometimes see, when you get into those bidding situations, you'll see listing agents say to their clients, look guys, you've got a financed offer here, he's offering you more, but you've got to be careful because if it doesn't appraise, you're either going to have to bring in more cash or you're going to be subject to more scrutiny in the appraisal process.
Or they should just have Mark's number and get ready to call Mark Hoff of Pacific Private Money. He's got money to spare.
It's funny because they say that 25% of all transactions are cash buyers. But you know what? I wonder if they're taking that information from the contract itself. In other words,
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good
because
point.
we get contracts in every day
Say
that
all
say
cash.
all cash, but they're actually coming in with a private or hard money loan.
I can almost
to close
guarantee
it.
that's what they're doing.
Right, so I think they're skewed a little bit. Now, the numbers of
Yes.
so-called all-cash buyers have been trending down, but they still, they're still somewhere, I guess, if you want to factor in maybe 5% of those are using private money, maybe 20%. But the point I want to make is that minority of buyers actually has a huge impact on pricing because the people who are planning to use a mortgage, they know they're competing, or at least they're being
Exactly.
told by the listing agent
Right.
that they're competing against all cash, so you got to get aggressive.
They are the psychological 800-pound gorilla in the room.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it, and so the cash buyers are causing this. They're certainly a strong factor for this overbidding. I guess if there's any good news is that when an all cash buyer does win the day and outcompetes everybody else, that's now a new comp.
Correct.
And so that price per square foot now applies as a comparable
We-
sale that appraisers can use for that neighborhood.
We've had those transactions happen. So I've had some cases both on the purchase and the refinance side where, Edward, you talk about how long is this thing, how long could it play out? Sometimes that actually works to your advantage because now if you've got a purchase and the appraisal got hung up on value, a new transaction may close in that window. Now you can rebut that appraisal, bring in that comp, and you can get the value. So we're seeing
how
that.
often that happens.
It doesn't. I mean, a lot has to go right for that to work. But we do see that happen in a market where you have an upward trend in value. Very dicey, and you don't want to be the one subject to that
But see,
waiting.
with all this kind of stuff, I could easily see people calling Pacific Private Money just to get their deal done,
Get it in.
and then they could go and refinance it out.
Yes.
How easy is that? In the old days, it was very difficult because they didn't want to see a cash out type thing.
Well, if it happens within the first 6 months, it's considered a delayed purchase
Okay.
financing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and so you can do that.
I got a call this week from a very successful Bay Area mortgage loan originator who called me because he did a strategic foreclosure in 2011
Okay.
on some rental property, and his wife doesn't work, so he needs to be the guy that signs it, and he needs a
Right.
bridge loan. Now, he knows he can get a program because he makes a lot of money,
Mhm.
but it's a 45-day program. He wants to go in and make an aggressive
Right.
14-day no contingency offer so he can get the home he wants. And so he called me and said, would I qualify for a bridge loan with that scenario? I said, heck yeah, you and maybe about 20 of your friends.
What's the LTV?
He just he can put down 30 to 35%.
What part of the Bay Area?
It's he wants to buy something in the between $1 and $2 million in the Santa Rosa area, which buys you a really
Yeah,
nice
it's-
house out there.
Personal
So-
residence?
Yeah, personal residence. So he
We'll
so-
talk. We'll
yeah,
talk.
Right. So he was just calling to make sure that I could
Yeah.
come up with a $1 million bridge loan for him in a week if need be. I said absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we
You
do
hear
at
that,
Pacific
audience?
Private Lending.
Mark Confi's got money out the wazoo. He can come up with $1 million in a week.
Go default on all your investment.
Now, I will
properties.
admit, it is, I don't, all joking aside, it's costly money. It's not 4%, it's 10% and a couple of points, but it's just so incredibly easy to qualify for if you're a person who would normally be able to qualify for a conventional mortgage, but you don't have the time, you want to make an aggressive offer, or maybe you want to buy a house first before you sell your existing home, and the bank tells you, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, but you don't qualify for 2 mortgages at the same time because of your debt-to-income ratios. That's a big thing that's hitting a lot of people by surprise right now. So the answer,
if this guy's going to refinance, let's say in 45 days or so, then the interest isn't really that costly. It's the point.
It's the points. It's the fee.
But
it's a Plan B option.
We talked about that before. What if that enables him to land a deal on that property?
Yeah, how many hundreds of thousands is this guy maybe going to save on that?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, and he gets the house he wants.
Very good. Well, guys, we got to cut out for today. That was a good show, very informative. I'm gonna
don't tell me now. I'm just getting warmed
up.
up.
I'm going to have to save the podcast on this one. Okay, here's our thoughts for the day. The first rule of holes: if you're in one, stop digging. And adversity causes some men to break, others to break records. American writer William Arthur Ward. Never heard of him. I guess he didn't break too many records.
Wow.
Okay, but it's still good stuff. All right, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away 9 more free vacations for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown. We're wishing you the best of investing. So long. Good. Captain,